Torn over whether to keep the CEO's baby, I sat in the hospital while he was losing his mind, planning another woman's wedding. Felix Keeble's sweetheart has returned to the country. It was time for me to leave after accompanying him for 9 years, but he begged me not to leave while still loving her. Bette Doe. I was so lost in my thoughts that I didn't even notice the nurse calling my name twice. Have you decided? Are you going through with the surgery or not? Seeing me standing there unsure, the nurse asked me again kindly. I absent-mindedly touched my belly. Implied a new life was just beginning to grow. This was mine and Felix's baby. The first time I saw Felix was at our company's yearly gathering. I was in a V-necked dress, not exactly fit for any heavy lifting, but my boss asked me to kneel down to clean his shoes and to bow to him afterward. I held my dress close to my chest, surrounded by a group of older men. I felt like a vulnerable lamb awaiting a pack of wolves. Just as their hands started to wander, Felix stepped in. He not only put those men in their place but also fired them on the spot. Here's no room for harassment in my company, he declared. In that moment, Felix became my hero, my beacon of hope. I bowed. Then to stand by him always. It took me 3 years to become the executive secretary and 2 more to become Felix's personal assistant. Now, after 9 years by his side, I thought he'd surely notice me. But I was mistaken. From start to finish, I was just a stand-in for someone else. I held the pregnancy report tightly in my hand. The white paper and black letters in front of my eyes became more and more blurred. When I came to my senses, I found that my tears had already dripped down the list thoroughly. I laughed self-deprecatingly. Bette Doe, your position as a special secretary was truly special, especially when Felix would call out Zora Stone's name every time he was deeply in love. Bette Doe, Zora Stone. Our names were different. Even the number of letters in our names was different. The only similarity was my face, which was very similar to Zora's. I dried my tears, bit my lip, and told the nurse to wait a little longer. This was my and Felix's child. Perhaps it would be the last tie between me and Felix. I couldn't bear to part with him. The nurse left, leaving me alone in the long corridor. The lights went out and turned on again. A young man helped his girlfriend sit down slowly. Their fingers were intertwined and the boy's eyes had never left the girl. He coaxed her in a gentle voice. Baby, if you are too scared, just give birth. I'll take care of you. Felix had once coaxed me in a gentle voice. The only time it was Zora's wedding ceremony that day. She had sent an electronic invitation to Felix from abroad. It was the first time I had seen Felix lose his composure. He threw everything around him to the ground. I didn't know what I could do, so I could only wait aside. After a long time, Felix had vented his anger and suddenly looked at me. His eyes were red and flashing with tears. Zora Stone, why can't it be me? He threw himself at me and hugged me, pressing me down on the desk. I cried and said no. He gnawed on my body. When I gave up struggling, he suddenly woke up. He choked with sobs and coaxed me in a low voice. Be my lover, and I'll give you money. I beg you. I wanted to beg for mercy, but I couldn't say it. I thought of my sick mother, the high spent every day, and the gambler father who asked me for money every time he lost the bet. So I replied, okay. From that moment on, I lost my dignity and became a slave to money. Why? I asked him. Why me? He said, because you look like her. It was because Bette Doe, like Zora Stone, had abandoned him, but he could never forget. That was all. The light that night was very dim, and the air was filled with an indescribable smell. That night was my 25th birthday.